Hi there, it's Professor Monty, and we're talking about multiplication of complex numbers. So remember, I is the square root of -1, and I squared is -1. And a rule that we have is we must simplify all powers of I greater than 1 in our answers. In other words, we can have an I in our answer, but we can't have an I squared. We would have to simplify it to -1. So let's see some examples. So remember, square root of -1, we just said that's I. The square root of -9, well, the square root of the 9 is the 3, and the negative makes it an I, so that's 3i. If you need review of this, go back to one of my earlier videos where I just talk about imaginary numbers. Okay, so now I just multiply these together. 1i times 3i, just like x times 3x would be 3x squared, this is 3i squared. But remember, I squared is -1, so it's really 3 times -1, or -3 is my answer. Notice you can't multiply the numbers under the square roots together first and get square root of 9, which is 3. These are imaginary numbers. That rule works for real numbers. It doesn't work for imaginary numbers. Okay, and then similarly, the 4i and the 5i. In our brains, we're just saying, oh, it's 4 times 5 and it's I times I. But just like 4x times 5x would be 20x squared, this is going to be 20i squared. And then again, same thing, I squared is -1, so -20 is my answer. All right, now I have one where I have to distribute. The same properties of algebra still work. We still use the distributive property. That one works. So I get 6i plus, and then 3 times 4, 12i squared, and just remember that's -1. So I get 6i plus 12 times -1, and you may get in the habit of quickly just saying, oh, that's -12. So it's 6i minus 12, and often we want to write it in the form a plus bi. That's our typical complex number form, so we would often go -12 plus 6i. Okay, and then over here, foiling. If I have two complex numbers like this, I have to FOIL those up. So I'm going to get 3 minus 6i plus 6i minus 12i squared. Well, this time the 6i and the minus 6i cancel out. I just get 3 minus 12 times -1, or 3 plus 12, 15. That's still a complex number. It's not imaginary because there's no I, but we could write that as 15 plus 0i if we wanted it in this form. We typically don't put the 0 if it's a 0 or a 0i. We would just write it however it comes out. But that's the idea. It's not a very difficult thing. Use the properties we typically use with algebra, distributive property, FOILing things out, those type of things. But just remember, anytime you have an I squared, you need to change it to -1 to simplify your answer.